Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Fun Astrology Podcast. Boy, it's time. We are getting ready to turn the corner, change energy. This is really kind of the kickoff. I'm so glad that you're here. We're going to show you what the week looks like, particularly focusing on two events this week. Really, Wednesday is when everything kicks off. And let's just take a look at the chart here. We'll go straight into it and take a look at these very complementary energies this week. We have the Sun and Saturn conjoining at just shy of 6:30 in the morning Eastern Time on Wednesday. And right before that happens, the Moon enters Virgo, and that's where it will be for Friday's full moon and obviously lunar eclipse. We'll talk about that in just a minute. And these energies are just amazing. It's incredible, even studying this and believing in it, like I do, and following it, that when we see unfoldings that are so depicted in the sky and realizing that so much of this is about our soul journey. It's, yes, what's going on around us every day, but it's also this spiritual path. If we go back to Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, one of my favorite quotes, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. And when we frame it up from that perspective, it makes all of this look completely different. So we're dealing with the last bastions of Pisces here, and that's what you see circled. And then opposite that, the moon will move into position, and the eclipse that we'll look at the chart in just a few minutes takes place at 23 degrees Pisces, so just very close to this Wednesday event of the Sun and Saturn coming together. But I wanted to show you this other little funky triangle here is called a yod. And some people call it a witch's hat because you could see if you stood it up on its base, then it's a long triangle. I'm going to erase the markings in the chart so you can see it. The green lines are how I set that up in my chart. And if you think about yods being some kind of a fated destiny kind of thing, when we look at them on these daily charts, these transit charts, like what we do on the Fun Astrology Podcast, you're talking about something that comes and goes really fast. So it's like it's not this big earth-shattering thing, but another moniker for a yod is the finger of God. And that's where I tune into these things, because even with the moon, this is only going to last a few hours, but it happens to be at the time of that Saturn-Sun conjunction. And when that takes place, I just step back and I think, now, what is God trying to show us here? And we're talking about the moon being the point of this. So that means that this eclipse is a little more special than because of this little wink in the sky for those who catch it. And then look at what else we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a sextile. So really what we're talking about are these planets at the early part of Aries, right in here. It's not the sun, it's not so much. Well, it could be, I guess. I mean, let's draw the line right here. There's the line of that sextile. So it's the 0 Aries point itself, which is super significant. It is the ascendant point of this chart, as far as we're in a 0 Aries chart. So we're going to count that as significant, that 0 Aries point. And it's in this 60-degree relationship with Pluto now at 3 degrees Aquarius. All right, you see how all of that fits together? That's the base of this tall triangle. The reason this is significant is because 3 of these planets, so these 2 right here and this one right here, that's the Sun, Saturn, and Neptune, are all going to cross into 0 degrees Aries. 2 of them happen shorter. The Sun will be Thursday the 20th, and then Neptune will be on the 30th, and then Saturn comes in later in May. But they all are going to get there, and when they do, they're going to be in this aspect, this connected aspect to Pluto. And what that means is that the focal energy of this chart is going to be centered around transformation, and powerful transformation at that. And it could be, even though this is a positive aspect, it could be destructive transformation. So when these yods come along, I just think that it's like God is telling us, folks, this is all according to plan. And the moon is, in one sense, can represent the people of the country. It also can represent women, and it can represent our soul, our subconscious, the very essence of our eternal presence in the world. And that's what I'm looking at here, is just to say that we have a purpose for being here during this time and for this transformation. And this is so cool, and it is so beautiful of a picture. And it just comes and goes like that, because that moon moves so fast that within a matter of hours it pulls off of this. So you have to be looking for it. It happened to be in this chart right there during that aspect, but I think that is so cool and so significant. So the thing to just keep in mind is we are here for a purpose. God is acknowledging that and saying, stay the course, because it's going to get a little difficult here if all of this continues to play out. It's going to get a little testy. And that's one of the things about this Saturn-Sun relationship, is we're talking about serious kind of slow it down energy. So Saturn has been sitting there in Pisces and actually been doing quite well. For Saturn to be in Pisces and not be as vocal as Saturn has been is actually a pretty good thing. But I think this is a really stark reminder, as the sun, which is the essence of who you and I are, meets Saturn. One of the things that's asking us to do is to look in the mirror and be super sold to ourselves on our spiritual path. In other words, are you a spiritual tire kicker, or are you really in the game of spirituality for the long run, because it is a part of who you are. It's part of your essence. In other words, you would give up everything else in the world and cling to that one thing. If you only had one thing to hold on to, that would be it. Are you that serious about it? That's what Sun Saturn is asking us to take a look at. Now, the other thing is, obviously, what are we going to be focusing on, and how committed are we for the grind? Because that's Saturn. It's the long game. It's running the distance. It's Capricorn. It's the sea goat climbing the mountain. Be sure it's the right mountain, as Steve Forrest reminds us so appropriately. Make sure you're climbing that mountain. But are you on the right one? When you get to the top, you look around, you go, oh no, I climbed the wrong mountain. Well, this is all this time to reevaluate that. That's what this Pisces transit has been about. So we're talking about coming back to our structure, coming back to our commitment. It's the last bastion of events in Pisces. This and what happens on Friday. And then after that, the sun says goodbye. And then Neptune says goodbye. And the whole energy of the sky and as above, so below changes. Now, if you remember last week, we had Tracy Arnold on with us, a special guest, a podcast listener, and somebody who has a lot of really cool stuff coming. She is going to be telling us more about that in future episodes. But I wanted to ask her just to comment on this, because she's been looking into this both intuitively and from the perspective of the charts. And I wanted her to give us a heads up on some of her thoughts on how to manage this from our soul journey perspective. Here's Tracy Arnold.
Well, now's the opportunity to stop, pause, and reflect and see what is working, what needs to be released, and what needs to be revamped. Because at the new moon, we set some intentions, and we've had some time to look at it and have a few reality checks maybe. So we want to be reflecting and journaling and really kind of getting our mindset in time for the full moon, because there's going to be a lot more energy then, so it might not be as clear as to what you want to do. Now, while you're doing this, you want to keep in mind that we have a few truths to be known and keys to success from what from the contemplative meditation that I did. I was hearing that having an open mind and a compassionate heart and emotional awareness is what we really need to be focused on this week. Because when we have that open heart and the open mind and compassionate heart, we can be in a better place to be responsive rather than reactive. So we can have better thought processes, we can have better conversations. And as far as the emotional awareness goes, it's just taking a pause in the morning. First thing when you wake up, stop and think, how am I feeling? What's my mood? What's my mental mindset? And, beyond is it already time to get up? Just doing that check in and seeing how you feel for the day. That's your set point. So that way, as you go through the day and you have your conversations, you know that if you walk away and you're not feeling good, you're all of a sudden feeling kind of depressed or something, you're like, I didn't wake up that way. You've picked up on somebody else's emotions, most likely the person you were talking to, because Pisces are more empathic and we are still in that empathic Pisces season. So we have to have emotional awareness of what's ours versus everybody else's so we don't get thrown off course. So keep those three things in mind and sit down, do your reflection, figure out what you've got to release and what you have to revamp. And then when we get to the full moon, you're going to set yourself up for success. You're going to start off with burning some incense or sage, Palo Santo. If you're into the oils, you can use those because those scents will raise your vibration. So that will also help you get into a meditative state. So it's worth thinking about and figuring out what works for you. Frankincense is a wonderful scent, whether it's incense or an oil, to get that higher vibration and jump right into that meditative or that flow state, the intuitive flow state, which is great for a full moon. Then you also want to have, you want to have your meditation music picked out or a guided meditation. You're also going to you can work with crystals. If you like working with crystals, those also will help to raise your vibration to get into that flow state. So selenite would be perfect since we're in Pisces season. Although it's a Virgo moon, that's okay. You can use selenite and you can use a clear quartz. Those are like some real base crystals that are great to have for any time. So we're going to be having the Virgo moon come in and talk to us and say, so how are all your plans working? And it could be a little analytical, overcritical. That's where that compassionate heart comes in. The open mind comes in, right? You want to have self-compassion. We're not perfect. We're human. And we're trying to do the best that we can in this life. So when you keep those things in mind, that's going to help you flow through that full moon. Don't forget to grab your journal. And since we're still in Pisces season, if you have a water fountain, you could have that going. That helps you connect to the flow of water and emotions and everything Pisces. And if you are one who connects well with nature and you're somewhere warm, then going out in nature, connect. Figure out what works for you. There are no steadfast, hard rules. You do you, and you'll come out great on the other side.
Thanks, Tracy, and we'll be hearing from her again before we finish out this episode. But I wanted to show you now the chart of that lunar eclipse, and it happens just before 3 a.m. Eastern, and it will be a full lunar eclipse. It's visible across the whole United States. So if you're up at 3 in the morning, well, you can catch it, and it will be about about an hour and a half window, I guess, hour and a half window on either side. All of that, the best place to see is timeanddate.com. It will give it to you in your own time zone, what the broad times are, but the exact time that the sun will be across from the moon will be there at just 2:54 a.m. on the East Coast. Now, the energy of this is going to be incredible because we have several pieces and parts that I wanted to show you of what this looks like. So first of all, just the structure itself of a full moon is obviously always the moon across from the sun. How do you have an eclipse? Well, basically, here's exactly it. The sun and the moon are close to the equator. They are at 2 degrees north and south of the equator. So the shadow casts over and blocks out, and that's basically what happens. When the sun and the moon are at higher declinations, the shadows miss each other and you don't have that. But since we're here, let's take a look at this one because we have Mars still out of bounds. We'd showed this a couple of weeks ago, but yes, it is still gnarly out of bounds, still solidly out of bounds. 25 degrees, 13 minutes north. Out of bounds is at 23 degrees, and I'm going to forget the minutes. But it is solidly out of range there for out of bounds Mars. That means Mars is just a lot more wonky, and it's going to be adding a lot more of Mars characteristics because it is activated by this eclipse. And I can show you right here why Mars is involved in this eclipse. It's in a trine aspect to the sun, and it's also in a sextile aspect to the moon. So it is definitely part of an activated structure of the eclipse itself. And another one, just while we're here, is the same thing for the planet Uranus of surprises, is in a sextile to the sun and a trine to Mars. So those are really the two primary aspects that are involved here, other than the opposition of the sun and the moon. And of course, because the sun is close to the nodes of the moon, we're dealing with extra personal and collective fate built into this. Another piece of the pie that we need to consider is Venus is in retrograde. It's in Aries. It is moving back, and it will cross over that 0 degrees Aries line on its track backwards. But that's one to keep in note. And the other thing of note that we alluded to, is that on the 30th of March, Neptune will cross over that 0 degrees Aries point, entering Aries, leaving Pisces, except for a brief retrograde where it kind of sticks its toe back into 29 degrees. Neptune will be leaving Pisces after its 13-year transit since 2012. So we pick up completely new energy, but we also have Mercury is stationing. You notice that it's got that little S by it. That means it's slowed down. It's going to come to a stop. And on Saturday, it turns retrograde. So we'll have both Mercury and Venus retrograde energy present at this eclipse. Mercury not full on, but very, very close. So if you think about just the opposing energies of the Virgo versus Pisces, Virgo wants everything in order. It wants everything scheduled out. It wants to map everything out. It wants to be in control. And when it's not, it snaps back with criticism. That's the Virgo number one characteristic, critical. Well, those energies are pulling across from each other right now and are significant. So you have that dynamic at play right there. We have conflicting energies that are going to be in the sky. And we've talked about Pisces and all of the characteristics around it. So the collective, people around you, your family, your friends, your coworkers are going to be feeling this extra, extra strong. And then we have all these other points that are activated in the chart that we've talked about. We've got surprises. We've got conflict and aggression. We have money and relationships and everything we love. And then we have the whole transportation, technology, everything else. And then we have this always present Pluto at the beginning of the sign of Aquarius that meets everything that happens there right at the door. So everything is built around transformation. And then, as we showed in the other video, we have this kind of yod structure formation that's also there. It's not exact in this chart on the time of the lunar eclipse, but it's in the background. The drum is beating back there. So there is so much change that is being reflected in this chart. And that's the thing about this, that why Ray Merriman called this the zero Aries point, the Aries vortex, because all of these outer planets are changing signs within a couple of years of each other. This is more energy than most people on Earth are able or used to experiencing at one time. And that's why you're seeing what we're seeing. And to me, everything that's unfolding in the headlines and what we're watching happening around us is all part of this astrology that has been so clear and so descriptive of everything that is going on right now. When Pluto entered Aquarius, we knew that there was going to be a dynamic that was between two things. Don't tell me what to do, and I'm going to control you through technology. And aren't we seeing that play out? When we move into Aries, we're talking about conflict and potential war. Uranus, when it moves out of Taurus and into Gemini, is going to create more divisions. Jupiter moving into Cancer. That's a good one. We'll take that one. We like that one. But these other ones And then eventually Saturn moves into Aries, which is more compounded aggression. And it's going to be in an aspect with Mars when it moves in there. So there's just a lot that's going on that's going to be coloring all of this from the collective standpoint and what we're all going to be experiencing in this together. Now, I'd like to bring it back. That's what that's a lot of stuff. Tracy has some amazing soul journey material that can bring us back to grounding, and I'd like to bring her in to wrap this up today.
Well, we're going to be seeing a shift in how we feel about things because Aries is a motivator. It's a fire energy, so it activates you. It may make you feel like you want to take action about something you deeply believe in. But then we're going to, at some point, we're going to have it retrograde back into Pisces so that we're having another conversation of, are you sure that's what you believe? And then it's going to go back into Aries again. And we're going to be back to, yeah, that's what I believe. And I'm going to take action. So we really are being given an opportunity to gain clarity. And journaling is where that clarity is going to come in because you get to take notes on how you felt in Pisces, and then you take notes on how you feel with the movement into Aries, that fire, and how does that activate you? Or does it just cause you to be angry or angsty or frustrated? You're not sure what to do. That will give you some notes to reflect on and to just sit with in contemplative meditation and gain some clarity. And you're going to figure out where you feel better and where your set point is, and then you can move forward from there. So that's pretty much the way that I'm sensing it. And this whole eclipse season that we're going through, it's an ongoing conversation of how you're feeling about very specific things. It's what comes up in your life. Without having your natal chart in front of us, we can't get into that. So it's really you just being aware of what is coming into my attention, repeatedly. It's a like a karmic cycle, because when we start having Saturn moving into Aries, that's definitely the Mac Daddy of karma and what have you done with your time. So we know that we are in a cycle, and this is the time that we can break or change the cycle. Sometimes we don't have that luxury of breaking it, but we can change it. And when we're better prepared for it, we can respond rather than react. So I hope that you can take all these notes from today and sit down and just kind of make a plan. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Tracy, for those great grounding thoughts, and it will help us get through this week for sure. Stay solid on your spiritual path. Re-examine, really, what am I committed to? Have your plan, because it's going to be time to kick it into gear next week, and that's where we will pick up in the next episode. Thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Tracy, again for your contributions today. We'll see you on the audio podcasts all through the week. Have a good week, everybody.